Omar and I have been learning from the biggest YouTubers in the world on how to grow on YouTube and all the changes that are coming to YouTube and what we need to do to make it in 2023. There's a lot going on. There's a whole lot of stuff that we learned, and we're learning from massive YouTubers like Ryan Trahan, Mr. Beast. The first session we actually attended was Ryan Trahan, Omar, and major takeaways.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite things about coming to these events is like you're talking people who are doing this at the highest level. What are they thinking about when they're creating content? And so Ryan Trahan did have the first session, and the first thing he talked about what was so key to his content was market timing. This is knowing the season and what content you're creating in the season. And for him, he did a very famous 30-day vlog series that he planned intentionally to do in the summer. And he said why. He said the reason why I did this was because a lot of our audience is actually in school. So this gave people something to do during the summer, and he just used that wave. And he used the example of Black Eyed Peas, I got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night. But he said that song came out at the crash, the recession in 2008. Yeah. No one was having a good night during that time, but they dropped a song when the world needed it. And I think there's something to learn about that. And even in your space or niche, what season or timing that you can implement into your content to know this is where my people are at and then serve them that way. I think that was super key.
Yeah, 100%. And I love how he talked about thumbnails, but we're actually going to be talking about all of the thumbnail advice that we got from like Mr. Beast, Paddy Galloway, and just some of the other big YouTubers. We're going to be talking about that at the very end. But one of the other things that Ryan was talking about that I was taking notes on, I thought was super interesting. He was talking about the prediction for YouTube in the future. And one of the things he talked about was pursuing longevity and being able to last. And he says that he loves YouTube, and his whole purpose for it is he wants to be here. Like he's doing it for the long haul. He's not doing this just to get rich or get famous quickly. He's really committed to YouTube and building it out. And I think it's really cool because sometimes people ask me, they're like, do you think YouTube is like going away? And to just like see all these massive YouTubers not worried about YouTube really and honestly to see YouTube making these changes to set it up for just continue to evolve YouTube. They are changing YouTube in a positive way. And so, but one of the major takeaways that Ryan was talking about was rest. So in 2021, Ryan was talking about how he took 2 weeks off and he was working the rest of the year. And then in 2022, he's taking months off. And I just thought that was kind of cool because he's really just focusing in on rest. And obviously he's kind of at a place where he can do that with the brand he's built and the business he's built. But how do you think, just not the Ryan Trahans of the world, but just like the people watching this video who maybe have a full-time job, how can they try and have a mindset of like, I want to be able to rest and not burn out? Because he said, if you get successful and you burn out, then you weren't successful.
Yeah, right. No, 100. And we've seen that time and time again with many well-known creators. What he talked about in his way of doing that and how he changed his mindset was what was called redemptive work. Yeah. And this was just changing your mind on how you approach work. And some of that even included adding people to the team. Some of the people on his team are people he said that could stand alone, have millions of subscribers on their own channel, but because they are doing something for a greater good, that they're able to do things together, move faster, and actually do less with more. It kind of let a lot of people breathe a little bit because it's like, dude, this dude accomplished more with less time. And that's possible, but it's a pre-decision you need to make going in that this is for the long haul. So if I'm feeling a sense of burnout or something, then I'm doing something wrong and something needs to change.
Yeah, and I love that he talked about that. And it was funny, in building a team, I thought was like the most practical advice. And obviously a lot of people, like, that's the goal to get to. And so it was funny because you and I kind of got split up at certain times, but I don't know if you kind of got this a lot, but I kept having people come up to me and be like, it was two things. One was like, where's Sean? And I was like, Sean's not here, Omar and I and Kyle were here, hanging out. And then the other thing that people kept asking me about was they were actually really interested, and they thought it was really cool that there are like different personalities to Think Media now. Because back in the day, if you're like new to our channel, Sean Cannell founded this channel and it was just him. And then he started to hire a team with Omar and Kyle. And then eventually I came on, and I started being on camera and you started being on camera. And so a lot of people were interested in that. And so I feel like we need to eventually talk a lot more about that.
That was probably after people recognized me at this conference about like the content we've been putting out. That was a lot of the times the next question. How does this work with you guys? Multiple people on one channel, because a lot of people here are actually pursuing a personal channel, which we can even talk about what Ryan talked about in regards to you're building a brand whether you know it or not, and how it's so important that you identify what your brand is. And he did that by talking about what are you known for and kind of what you are known to be against, or you're positive or negative.
So if you're trying to dial in your brand, Ryan was like, ask yourself what are the 3 positive traits that you have? And then what are 2 negative traits, but that maybe you would deem negative, but actually that people like about you and make you unique. And so I was like, that was just a simple framework that I think we need to apply at Think Media. And then even for ourselves, like what's my personal brand when I'm on the channel? What's different about me? What's different about you? And I think just like leaning into who we are, I think is going to it works for YouTube, and like because people just want to see us the way we are. Like people are interested in that authentic side of us. So moving on to the next session, Kyle and I attended a session with HopeScope, and one of the major takeaways for me with her YouTube channel was she was talking about retention and how to increase retention. And basically, if you're brand new, if you increase retention, it means people are watching your videos longer, and that's going to help get views on YouTube. Like that's one of that, and click-through rate, people clicking. So one of the interesting things that she talked about that I feel like is just a major hack for everyone watching this is she's talking about listicle type videos that were maybe tips, and you have like 10 tips, or you have like 10 in her niche it was like 10 fashion pieces or leggings or something. And so sometimes people can just skip through because they just want to see 1, 2, 3 all the way up to 10. So one of the things that she was talking about was in her thumbnail is actually where the retention hack starts. So in the thumbnail, what she would do is she would have 2 different leggings or 2 different pieces in this listicle type of video. And she would open the video right away with one. And by the way, the 2 pieces, she said to choose like the most crazy or the best. So she would open it first with one of the leggings that were like the most crazy, most expensive. And then the last one in the video was the other one you saw in the thumbnail. And so this was really interesting because I think it's just like the psychology, and that's something they've been talking a lot about. But like you see a thumbnail, and then to instantly get that like instant gratification of that is awesome
is connected to.
But then you're waiting to see the last one at the end of the video. I thought that was just like a really cool hack that I want to experiment with on Think Media.
No, 100. And another cool thing I think she talked about that, YouTube has grown and evolved over time. Mm-hmm. And the way you started out videos at one point, you wanted an elongated intro, and provide so much value in front of the, and you'll find sometimes on Think Media, we did that. But we have gotten into the just getting right into the content. And then the second thing we've been implementing is ending the video right away. And you could see drop-offs in content when you start ending a video, when you start using language that is cueing the viewer to actually start checking out. So just ending your video when it needs to end is something you want to look into and start doing to actually help that retention stay throughout. And honestly, what it does is it creates circular video virality, which is essentially keeping people in your world because they haven't got the gratification for the video actually ending, and they'll probably end up watching another video. So I thought that was really key, and kind of something that you can adjust in your content is just to, end your videos better, and essentially by better, abruptly,
Yeah, and we actually have an entire video basically breaking down, and it's cool because some of the things that we've just been learning, we're like, awesome, we're doing a lot of that, and we're like, here's how we can make it better. But I'm like, we have a video teaching exactly how to do that. You can click the link in the description to check out like how to end your videos. And that is, and she was saying, if you do that correctly, it's like, it's a major step up versus all the other people who don't do it correctly, and it just hurts their retention rate. And so I think that's just like a really easy way to focus in on that end piece to just increase your retention rate to get more views. The next session was Daryl Eves, and there was a couple main points. He gave a lot of practical advice, but I feel like the major takeaways that I wanted to share in this video was he talked about how there's 2 goals of YouTube, and number 1, YouTube wants to predict what they want to watch. And then the second thing is YouTube wants to maximize long-term engagement and satisfaction. And so I want you to remember that because Mr. Beast does a Q&A that we're going to talk about next, and someone asked him about this satisfaction thing, and for me, I just had a major unlock. But for me, just to write those down and be like, okay, this is what YouTube wants, and his whole point, the main thing that I took away was it's all about the viewer. And that's something that I feel like we've seen a lot with, I even had a guy come up to me in the lobby, and he was talking about starting this YouTube channel, and he was doing some, he's going to start this YouTube channel with used gym equipment, how to buy and sell used gym equipment. And he was like, should I open my video with me going on a little 5-mile run? Because I do that, and then making my coffee and journaling, because that's how I start my mornings. And I'm like, well, what's your video about? He's like, well, it's buying used gym equipment.
Sure.
And I'm like, I was like, well, I just told him it's all about the viewer. So if the viewer wants to see those things, include them, but they probably don't if they don't know you.
Right.
And so he's like, well, Peter McKinnon does it. And I'm like, dude, Peter McKinnon's famous now. Like, he can do that because people just want to watch him. So
but he started with the 5 photo tips. He started with the video camera hacks. He started with the helpful tips that grew him to eventually be in a place where, yes, the dude can do whatever he wants right now.
Yes.
But he's still making helpful content. But yes, he can go to the coffee shop. He can do all those things. But yeah, contextualize what it means for you when it comes to your journey with the viewer, you know? And a lot of the times, we kind of get in our own world on a week-to-week basis, but because we're making helpful content and we come to a conference like this, it goes to show that, like, dude, when you really do put the viewer first in your content creation, not only does your communication come off better because you have them in mind while you're creating or scripting your video, but you're reaching the person you want to reach, and then you get to meet them in person, and it's a special thing for real.
So the next session was with Mr. Beast, and there was a Q&A, and this is kind of where it ties in. There was a question about viewer satisfaction, and I found this super interesting because this is something we're experimenting with on Think Media. And so the question was on chapters, on YouTube chapters. Should you include them? Should you not include them? And the real question that they were asking Mr. Beast was, if chapters can hurt video retention because people are skipping through, but it also increases viewer satisfaction, which one should you give? Should you take out the chapters and maybe have the viewer a little bit less satisfied because it's harder to get around? Or should you just add in the chapters? Your retention graph is going to hurt a little bit more. Your retention rate's going to go down a little bit, but the viewer is satisfied because they literally just got to skip to the part they wanted to go to, then they got to leave, but they're happy. And so I was like, I didn't know what he was going to say, but I was like, this is a very interesting question because we've been experimenting with not doing chapters.
Right.
And I think we've seen in certain videos, and there's a lot of things that go into with editing, but we've seen a little bit of an uptick in our retention graph. But Mr. Beast's answer kind of shocked me because what he said was, he didn't even think about it. He goes, you should always do viewer satisfaction. You should focus on satisfying the viewer. And I was like, interesting. And so when he expanded on it, it made a lot of sense because he said, if you think about a viewer clicking on your video, and if you have chapters and it makes it a good viewing experience for them because they can skip around, they don't actually want to hear that part of the video, they just want to go to the next part of the video, they are way more likely next time when they see your videos, because they had a good experience, to click on it again. And it actually helps increase your click-through rate.
Wow.
And so what he was saying was, if you hide chapters to try and hack the algorithm, what he was saying is, if a viewer is not as satisfied as much, then next time they see their video, if they were just mad because you wasted their time, they're not even going to click on your video. And so for me, that was just a major unlock. I'm like, we need to really obsess even more on viewer satisfaction.
Yeah, we don't have to spend too much time talking about Hayden Smith's session, who is the YouTube editor on YouTube. And he did a wonderful session on editing. And it goes to show just kind of know where you are in that journey, because chapters would make sense for videos that maybe don't have the best, what he would call rhythm. So if your video has no rhythm, maybe it would be best for you to actually throw in chapters. But if you have great editing and it's moving along and it keeps re-engaging an audience or a viewer, then maybe you can take away the chapters because the viewer satisfaction is there in the edit. But I think that was really cool that Hayden talked about rhythm, and it, sometimes we use the word cadence or pace, and that is a skill acquired over time when you edit your videos, is learning like when a moment's ending and you need to take on to the next one, or when something needs to be demonstrated with a B-roll clip or what have you. But it was just so enlightening, the encompassing kind of like thoughts and theories we were getting out of these sessions. But yes, we like big idea for the first half of the day was we need to just really, really think about the viewer again. And once we get there, go even deeper, and think about their true experience on our videos.
So the next session was Paddy Galloway, and it was a really, really interesting session for me because he is you might have seen his YouTube videos where he breaks down other YouTubers, and he works with YouTubers and is just very analytical and a smart guy when it comes to storytelling and packaging. And so he was talking about 3 major things, which was the ideas of your video. He was talking about the packaging, and then he was also talking about the video. And one of the main takeaways that I think I just want to share with everybody was when it comes to ideas, and this is something we do, I just don't think we've talked about it enough.
No, for sure.
He said to think of 100 ideas, bring it down to the top 10, and then choose one. And he goes, I can't believe when people think of one video idea and they just go and make it. Now, keep in mind, he's working with like Mr. Beast. He's working with people who require a
100,
a killer video idea. But my point is like, what if the people watching who just have a channel on cooking? What if they just took 10 ideas instead of one?
Right.
And they dialed it down into the 3 best videos, and then they shot those. I feel like you would see a massive. The point is, ideas matter so much on YouTube, and so start with volume and then work your way in to the best ones.
Yeah, and we've actually never shared this before, but every week at Think Media, the content team meets for about an hour to an hour and a half, and we talk about ideas, and we, discuss the ideas and debate the ideas. What makes most sense, and then it gets all the way to the place where we actually develop a title, right? And I think when Paddy was talking about titles, it's just crazy how just the reframing of the right title will cause so much interest. And his word was curiosity. So a lot of this really just comes back down to preparation, and how much time you spend in preparation is so key. And I even loved when, transitioning from a video idea to actually landing on a title was so interesting on how he broke that down, and how for the same video, a title can do everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 things, right? So he's talking about volume, which we do at Think Media. We literally meet, for an hour and hash out tons of titles to land on the one.
Right.
The second thing was focusing on human interest, which he gave a really cool example. So he was working with a client, and the first variation of the title was inside a $1.7 million New York loft. And they said that they didn't really love it. And there was nothing really interesting about it except the money value. But then they even were like, there's probably more expensive ones or whatever, right? So then they changed it to, I found the best loft in New York. And they liked it better. They thought it improved. And then they added one more thing to it, which was kind of another interesting aspect. He said, the next title was, I found the best loft in NYC, ... but nobody wants it. And they were like, that's the title. And the reason for it is it opened up this curiosity loop. Mm-hmm. If it's the best loft in New York City, why does nobody want it? And he was like, you could do the opposite. You could say, I found the worst loft in New York City and everybody wants it. And so I think with some of these titles and thumbnails, what I keep hearing a lot, and it just makes sense, and something that we try to do is like, how can you breed curiosity into that? Because naturally you want to click on something that sparks curiosity. You want to know the answer. You talk about like the do not open this box was one of the examples. It's like, you want to open it.
Right.
You're curious what is in there, and so you want to click on that video.
No, I think it's so key. And specifically on a title like that, like what I see is tension. I think tension breeds curiosity. And, in our world, when it comes to tech, sometimes we can use tension in the sense of like this minimal desk setup can do everything. It's like, wait a second, minimal everything? How? And so I think that's one way to like kind of look at a title. Can you have polar opposites within a title? And that really does breed some curiosity. And I thought that's such a cool example of like a practical way to just make a video title better.
100%. And I think if you are going for search, just to make this really practical to everybody, if you're going for search, something like a camera review, I don't think you have to make it super like curiosity driven. I think you could just be like the Sony a7S III, the best camera for YouTube. That works for us. Sometimes what we do though, which we can experiment with more, is the best camera for YouTube ? Or the Sony ZV-E10 versus the Sony ZV-1, which is better? And so there's two different angles there, and I think trying them both out and applying them to your own niche. But just thinking, as a viewer, if you see this thumbnail, would you want to click on it? And does that spark something for you to want to know more about it? Then you're doing something right when it comes to the title and the thumbnail.
And another real life example we actually had a few years ago, the Sony ZV-1, a compact camera released, and it was like the vlogging camera. Everybody was like, this is it. This is the vlogging camera for every beginner. And Sean just did a live stream, and his title was the ZV-1, the best vlogging camera. Hint, it's not. It was like the first video that dropped that day that had a negative kind of connotation around what was going on with the camera. And so people are like, wait, I thought it was a perfect camera. And so a 1 hour live stream got hundreds of thousands of views literally because of curiosity. So figuring out the pulse of who it is you're serving, the industry you're in, I think is really important to actually be able to speak into that. And, in that case, the luxury real estate, what people are, some people just love watching luxury real estate videos. And so in that case, to provide something at the end of that title to breed curiosity is super important.
Another major talking point at the conference has been the future of YouTube. And I found it pretty interesting. There's been a few different responses from big YouTubers that have talked about where it's actually going. And I think if you can ride the wave of where it's going, you're just going to go farther a lot faster than if you're doing old tactics and old things that don't work anymore. So Hillier Smith did an amazing presentation on editing. And so he was talking about how in 2019 to 2021, it was the retention trend cycle. So big ideas, trying to hack retention, cut out those chapters. I don't know, do whatever you got to do to get that high retention. And so what he said he believes is the new era for YouTube is storytelling. And so he thinks where YouTube is moving is in storytelling. Everybody just calm down real quick before you even type in a comment. Keep in mind this guy is in the entertainment niche. And so their search is still alive and still gives us 50% of our views and probably makes us $250,000 a year on Think Media in just AdSense. So it still works. You can still build a channel on search. But storytelling, I found this really interesting, and I still think that there is a lot to learn even for people like us who are doing tech reviews or are doing YouTube educational stuff. How can we incorporate storytelling elements into YouTube? We kept hearing this all conference. I found this really interesting.
No, for sure. I think it's kind of like a skill that I even need to start going down on, because I can talk all day and give context to why I even like a light or like this camera, but sometimes story could get in the way of what the even purpose of the video is. And so you were actually talking with a friend who actually does tech gear reviews and camera reviews and how he's incorporating story by getting cameras in front of people. But I think it's just a journey that we just need to start walking down and learning how to actually include story in the type of content that we do. And so I think that we need to incorporate story more in our content that we do at Think Media.
Yeah, 100%. The next one was Mr. Beast, and a question that came in was, what's the next phase of YouTube? So they're talking about, it kind of used to be maybe like vlogs. Right now it's challenges, big ideas. And so they said, Mr. Beast, what's next? Give us the secret. What's the next wave for YouTube? And he literally just goes, shorts. I'm like, dang, okay, shorts. And so he elaborated on it and why it's the future. And it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you need to listen to this entire clip, because if you literally exit off right now and go 100% all in on shorts, you're going to do the wrong thing. And he even says that. So just kind of hear me out here. But the major bullet points were, you want to be focusing on shorts because we're seeing an ad revenue split for shorts now. So they're going to be throwing ads on shorts. You're going to get 45% of the ad revenue. 55% is going to go to YouTube. And so this is going to cause a lot of people who are on TikTok. And he gave the example. He goes, dude, I can get 1 billion views on TikTok and make like $5,000. Yeah. Whereas if I do that on shorts, once ads start rolling out, and this is probably going to be coming out in the new year, he goes, this is going to be multiple figures higher. And so we don't know exactly yet what that's going to look like. But
it's going to disrupt the short form content revolution. And because these other platforms, they work off of a fund. They have a pile of money. So the more people that get more bigger on these platforms, the less you actually make, which is actually a sucky concept. So YouTube actually going in the direction of what they have been doing with their regular videos, it might disrupt the whole thing altogether.
So, and I love how YouTube, they're just like, TikTok, we're coming for you. Instagram, we're coming for you. Facebook, like, dude, they don't even care. YouTube is just like, we are going to pay our creators and we are going to do short form. We're going to do live streams. We're going to do video. And I just feel like they're unstoppable at this point. But the interesting thing that Mr. Beast was talking about when he was talking about shorts is to do both. He said it's not one or the other. And so Colin, he was interviewing Mr. Beast, and he talked about how they have on their channel, their two most viral videos. They have a 20-second short, and then they have a 2-hour-long podcast with Mr. Beast, and both of them get a lot of views. And so they were saying there's audiences for long-form content, there's audiences for short-form content, and you have to do both. And so Mr. Beast literally said the next wave is leveraging shorts and long-form, not doing either or, but actually doing both. And so he said that we're actually going to be seeing a new wave of creators coming from YouTube Shorts, kind of like we saw with the Vine era, the TikTok era. And so I'm excited for YouTube Shorts.
No, for sure.
It's going to be an interesting time. If you aren't making shorts right now, I think now's the best time to get started. And Eric, even in a different session, his advice for people was do 1 long form video a week and do 2 shorts a week.
That's a good.
Again, he's a full-time creator.
Good framework.
Yeah. So I just think it's both.
Yeah, and someone I think who's been doing it good for like about a year and a half now is Legal Eagle. He's a lawyer, and he'll do elongated, topics on certain things going on in the industry and different cases going on and things like that. But the way he uses shorts to point to his long form, it has really blown up his brand, and I think he's just doing it really well. And we're still trying to figure out how shorts fit into our content, but I definitely think there is going to be a skill level, because there's people that are getting really good at short form content. They're like, dang, I can't talk for 8 minutes. And then you got people that are like, I've been making 10, 15-minute videos for so long. I don't know how to condense that into 30, 60 seconds. And so just knowing that we need to get this on our radar and take it a little bit more serious, as YouTube is about to invest in it. So let's invest in what YouTube is investing in.
Now, if you're just watching this and you're new to Think Media, definitely subscribe, because we are going to be talking about shorts a lot more, giving tutorials on how to create shorts, and even the storytelling on how to cut it up, chop it up, so that people actually want to watch your shorts. There's a lot of stuff we learned here that we want to start making videos on and teaching you guys about. And so as we're experimenting with shorts, we're going to share everything we're learning here on the channel. So stay tuned for that. But at the end of the day, one of the major things you can do right now that we've seen at this conference is just focusing in on that packaging, which is titles and thumbnails. So we actually have a YouTube expert kind of breaking down some of the thumbnails, why they are terrible, and what you can do to actually make better thumbnails to get more clicks. So click on the screen, check that out. Omar, dude, it's been a good one.